Good evening, followers of fear. Did I scare you? I hope I did, because, you're not a horror author unless you scare your fans every now and then. So, welcome everyone to the 1-year publishing anniversary celebration of my novel Rose, right here. Can you believe that it's been a year? It's crazy. So much has happened in that 1 year, and it's been absolutely wonderful and anxiety-producing and insane and fun, and I've just had a blast. And I knew that I had to do something to celebrate this book being out of a year, so I thought I would do a Q&A with reader-submitted questions. Or should I call it an AMA? Whatever. Anyway, you guys, you the followers of fear, you all submitted your questions to me with your name and where you're from, and I'm gonna answer them now. Oh. But first, gotta get a couple of announcements out of the way. First off, the ebook edition of Rose is currently on sale. It went on sale on Friday the 19th and will be on sale through Tuesday the 23rd. For US buyers, the ebook will now be 99 cents. For those in the UK, it'll be 99 pence. So, if you want to read the ebook edition, now is a great time to get it. Secondly, those of you who want a download code for the Rose audiobook should have gotten your emails by now. If there is an issue with the download code, just email me back, and I will do what I can to help you. And yeah, I think that's it. So, let's begin with our Q&A. Oh, wait, there is one more thing. Everyone who submitted questions, thank you. I made this announcement, and I did not know if anyone would actually submit anything, but I had more than emails than I expected come into my inbox, so thank you all very much for submitting your questions and putting so much thought into them. I am very excited to answer them for you. And I'm very grateful that I don't have to make up a bunch of fake questions just to put something on YouTube after that one video. That would be kind of embarrassing. Though I'm sure it would be a creative exercise. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started on this Q&A. Or AMA. Or AMAA. Ask me almost anything. There are just some things the world is not ready to know. Anyway, our first question comes from Priscilla Bettis from Virginia. Hi, Priscilla! She asks, the cover art for Rose is fantastic. Did you have any input? Let's show everyone the cover art one more time before I answer that. Ta-da! And yeah, this cover art is fantastic. It's by the Gilded Quill. They did a lovely job. It's very, very evocative. It's very well done. It looks almost... the Rose on the front cover looks almost real. And I've heard more than a few people say that the cover drew them in on its own. I had some input. I gave some suggestions. And the publisher, or Castrum, had some suggestions, and the Gilded Quill took all that and made that. So, I guess they would know how much my input mattered in the end, but I think basically that they took some of my ideas and ran with them and produced something very pretty. Very eye-catching. Our second question is from Priscilla again. Hi. She asks, looking back, would you do anything differently either in the act of plotting and drafting or in your writing process and habits? Uh, for Rose specifically, yeah, there was a number of things I would have done differently if I were plotting that novel today. In the very first 3 or 4 drafts really relied a lot on flashbacks, and those flashbacks really didn't add that much to the overall story. I mean, they were informative about who Rose was, but they did not uh they did not add much to the main story, and that ended up making me throw out about 2/3 of the book. Yeah, 2/3. 1/3 was flashback, the other third was relying on flashback. So I only had like the first 7 chapters, and then I did a total rewrite. And if I could, I would go back and write it closer to what it is now, and uh, just go with the that idea. Man, I do not want to remember all those edits. they were they were a lot. They were a lot of work, but in the end it was worth it. Still, some of those mistakes I wish I could erase from history. Alan Huntsman from Enterprise, Utah sent in a question, and before I say what that question is, you should check out his YouTube channel, Death Ground Reviews, where he reviews different horror novels or collections or books about writing and the craft, or reads stories from Edgar Allan Poe and more authors than I care to name, and does it in a very creepy, dramatic fashion. It's great. I look forward to his videos, so you should check him out. Uh, he asks, what is the most significant thing you've learned about life and yourself from writing in the horror genre? What has the horror genre taught you? That's a tough one. That's a tough question. And what's the most significant thing I've learned about life and myself from writing in the horror genre? What has horror taught me? Honestly, I that's a thinker. That's a tough one. Horror has just taught me so much over the years. Writing taught me so much. I guess if I'm going to pick one thing for this video, it's that I horrors taught me that there is a place I can channel my weird eccentricities and ideas and habits and hobbies and just put them in a form that people not only like but eagerly look forward to. I mean, I wrote a novel which I finished earlier this year, Toyland, about a school haunted by a ghost, and the ghost is obsessed with a children's book. And people really want to read that one, and I'm hoping to get it published someday. So I guess if I'm going to say anything, it's that horror has taught me that there's a place and there's people who enjoy what I do, so as long as I put it in a story, I guess. Hope that answers your question, Alan. Jacob Zimmerman from Cincinnati asks, what's your favorite and least favorite thing about writing a novel? My favorite thing, it's a tie between getting to, first off, spread myself creatively. Like, I get to work on this big story with this very complex plot. There's room to expand, to go into all this detail, to really get to know these characters. And uh, when people finally get to read the novel, they get to tell you what they think, and sometimes they really enjoy it. Occasionally, they even stay up all night trying to get to the end. They have questions about it, and they just want to talk to you about it, and that's a really great feeling. I love that. But as for least favorite thing, writing a novel is a commitment of time and energy. It can take up to months or years to get it done, and that's just the first draft. After I finish a novel, I may not want to write for a week or more because I'm just that exhausted. And it's not just the first draft you got to work with, you got to work with several more drafts afterward, editing. Then you hopefully find a publisher, and that can take time as well. And then when you got to do more work to get it out there, and then once it's out there, once it's published, you got to do more work to make sure it's being read, that people actually know about the novel and are reading it. Visibility is something every author today has to work to get. And that can be a drain on a lot of people. So yeah, I think the drain is the thing I dislike the most about writing a novel, how much it can take out of me, but the benefits I receive back, they're more than enough to make up for that. Jack Scovell from the UK asks, what drew you towards creating a horror monster character based on plants? And it's actually a good question. From the very early stages of the story, I knew it was kind of going to be heavily influenced by Misery by Stephen King, where one character is being held hostage by another, and there's an unfair power balance. And, and I had to come up with an angle for the unfair power balance. Now, I knew early on that magic was going to be a big part of the story, that it was going to be involved somehow, so I tried to get very creative, something people would not guess, and somehow a woman combined with a plant creature worked the best. I can't even remember what other ideas I had. But that one was the one that stuck, and as you can see, it worked out in the end because, well, look, books here. Oh, look, my uncle submitted. Joel Unger from Detroit, Michigan asked, he has two questions for us. First question is, if you were to start writing a different genre, namely unlike horror or fantasy, science fiction, or dystopian, what would it be and why? I actually know this one right off the bat. Erotica. I know people who read erotica, or people who write erotica, or erotica itself, it just has a reputation. But honestly, I find that erotica has a certain art to it. You can't just write two people having sexual relations. There has to be more to it. There's a story to tell there through sex. Just like in a horror story, there's a story to tell through fear, violence, and the unknown. Or there's a story to tell through, in fantasy, through magic and creatures and swords and sorcery. You asked, Uncle Joel, you asked. I hope that one gives you nightmares. Your nephew, Rami Unger, the erotica writer. Dun dun dun. My uncle also asks, is there a genre you don't think you could ever really write in? A genre I don't think I could ever really write in. Literary. I've tried literary for classes, and honestly, it is just not for me. I cannot write stories about average people going through their average lives. I mean, occasionally I find one of those to be interesting enough for me to read it, but rarely do I ever feel the desire to write such a story like that. So yeah, I'm gonna go with literary on this one. Sorry to my college professors who love those sort of stories and thought that they were the real fiction. But, just not for me. Our next couple questions are from Isolt Murphy from Ireland, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Isolt. I'm just going. I just have never actually talked to someone in real life, in person, named Isolt, so I'm just going off how I'm told it's pronounced. If I mispronounced it, I am very sorry. She asks, please tell me about the poltergeist that lived in your childhood home. Oh my god, I talked about this on one of my social media platforms a while back, and I think it was Twitter. I want to clarify, I don't know if it was a poltergeist. It might have been. It's just that the home I lived in, from the time I moved to Columbus till about 5 years ago, I was there till I left for college, and then I was there on and off for the next couple of years, moving back in when I needed to. Occasionally some weird stuff happened in that home. You'd hear footsteps when nobody was moving around, or you'd think someone was in the hallway, but nobody was. And when I was 17, and this really cemented my fear of the my belief in the supernatural. Well, my belief in the supernatural, this really cemented it. When I was 17, I was going through a really stressful time, and this is why I think it might have been a poltergeist, because some believe that poltergeists are manifestations of stress. And I was applying for colleges, I was trying to pass senior year. Obviously, I was under a lot of stress. And I just remember these weird things happening when I was trying to sleep. Like the room would suddenly get very cold. I'd have the distinct feeling that I wasn't alone in my room. And one night, I remember this very clearly, I was awake. I wasn't dreaming, I swear I was awake. It was too real and felt too real to be a dream. And I was just lying under the covers, under the comforter, just trying not to move because I felt like there was someone in the room, and I felt a hand place itself on the comforter. I could hear the woof of the impact and feel the weight of the hand, and I just froze. And it was, I don't know how long it was there. It might have been there for seconds or maybe minutes. But it eventually went away. That feeling went away, and I was able to get some sleep. I've never been able to explain what exactly happened. But I've occasionally thought that house might have had something attached to it that only showed up at certain times. And my sisters believed that they experienced things at that house. They told me some time ago that they thought that house was haunted. So I'm not sure what it was, but I do know that there was something weird at times at that house besides me and my family. So that's my story of how I came to believe in the stuff I write about, and it's probably the reason why I avidly enjoy ghost hunting. I'm trying to find explanations for that. Maybe I'll never find those explanations, but whatever. It's fun and I enjoy it. And, it sparked something in me, so can't have been all bad. Isolde's other question is, if I could live in Victorian times, which country would I live in, what would my daytime occupation be, and what monstrous activities would I get up to at night? She knows I'm a huge Victorian England fan. I just finished writing a novel set during that era called The Pure World Comes. I hope to have it published as well someday. We'll see. He, Obviously, I'd want to live in Victorian England. Maybe not London. I might want to have a townhouse in London because that's a status marker. But London during the Victorian era could be a very dirty, grimy city. I mean, there were some places that were a bit nicer than others, but there were plenty of areas where the streets were made of mud and horse poop and human poop and all the other gross stuff you could probably think of. And as for what my occupation would be, I think I'd want to be landed nobility. That was the lifestyle well, everyone who could dream of, wanted to attain. That was the lifestyle. You just were a lord of your little landed area and you enjoyed getting profits from the people under your domain who lived off your land. In fact, men who started successful businesses in that era, they would work to get their families into high enough a position that they could marry their sons off to who daughters of families with land that they lived on, so the sons would never have to work a day in their life. They didn't start these family dynasties like J.P. Morgan did in America. They just wanted to get their sons to live like princes in their own little kingdoms, in their own little fiefdoms. So I think I would like that sort of lifestyle. It would definitely give me time to write. And honestly, it sounds like it would make things a lot easier. As for what I would get up to at night, I don't know. Maybe I would be an occultist or spiritualist. Spiritualism and the occult was a big craze towards the latter half of the Victorian era. It started off in like the 1820s or 1830s, I think, with the Fox sisters in America, then just kind of spiraled into its own big spiritual movement. So I might get up into that, just do the 19th century equivalent of finding a haunted house and exploring it with a camera and some equipment, doing some seances, maybe trying to do some ghost writing. I could probably write a whole book about those experiences. That would be fun. This next question comes from Ruth Ann Norden, a fellow author and a good friend. She's from Great Falls, Montana, and her question is a little spoilerific well, actually, very spoilerific for Rose. So if you haven't read Rose yet and would like to remain, spoiler free, I would skip ahead a few minutes. I'm not at the point in my video editing where I think I can tell you where to skip ahead. And so I will try, but just to be on the safe side, move ahead a few minutes and just hope you don't catch anything spoilery in the meantime. Sorry. Anyway, she asks, one thing I'd like to know is if the lore you brought up with the god who was directing things for Paris, is this based on research you did on various myths, or is this something you created yourself? And if you created this yourself, what was the inspiration behind it? Well, I've been a fan of Japanese culture and Japanese beliefs and Japanese manga and anime and Japanese everything for God knows how many years. And uh, obviously, I did a lot of research into what I was reading about and seeing in anime and manga. A lot of them featured kami or gods and goddesses. So I did my research, and it is true that there were spirits that weren't formally gods, but they were worshipped as so to appease them. And that's kind of where the forest god comes from. It might be what we would call a demon. And let's face it, even in every in every belief system, even in every belief system, there are going to be beings that do not like humans on principle. They don't have to be evil or demonic. So that's where I got the idea for the forest god. And by doing my research, finding all these stories of beings being worshipped in order to keep them appeased, and just thinking to myself, that might be something to put into Rose. I'm already got a magic book. Why not tie all that in somehow? So that's where that came from. Jolene Naylor from Villisca, Iowa, and I'll be visiting her soon. Just you wait, Jolene, we're gonna have a blast. Jolene Naylor from Villisca, Iowa, has a couple questions. Her first one is, which did you find harder, writing the first draft or during the rewrite or rework portion of the story? Definitely the rewrite. I mean, the first draft, yeah, that was hard, but then having to toss out about 2/3 of your novel, completely rewrite to new thirds, going in a completely different direction, and changing a whole bunch more stuff along the way, that was difficult. That raised my anxiety to new heights. It was, oh my god, I'd rather not think about it. I never want to rewrite that much again. I hope I don't have to. Uh, but it might happen. I hope it doesn't, but it might. Anyway, that was the harder part. That was definitely the harder part. Julian's second question was, when you changed characters' names, did it change their personalities at all? Yeah, some of my characters in Rose and in Rose, they did have different names at one point, and you know what? No, not really. Paris was still Paris, no matter what his name was. By which I mean he was still not the nicest dude around. His father was still difficult to deal with. Rose has always been who she is, so it hasn't changed that much. I guess it's like that Shakespeare line. What's in a rose? That which we call by any other name would smell a little just as sweet. And that is a great line to apply to this novel. Yeah. Just works so well. Nita Sweeney from Upper Arlington, Ohio, had two questions to send in. And her first question is, what was the impetus behind the book? What was the impetus? I remember in my junior year of college, just sitting in class, it was a science fiction fantasy literature course. Yes, Ohio State taught a science fiction and fantasy literature course, and to the best of my knowledge, they still do. And I was sitting in that class, and my mind wandered, and this idea for a story popped into my head all of a sudden. of something a la Misery, but with a magical angle to it. And I just became enamored with it. And I spent time developing it, and about a year later, when it came time to work on a thesis, I decided, heck, I'm gonna write this story. Might as well see where it goes. That was, let's see. Yeah, I came up with that idea in about 2013, and I started writing the draft in 2014. So that saga started about 7 years ago, officially got underway about 6 years ago, and here we are now. And look how far one small idea came. Crazy. Our final question for tonight, and yes, this is the final question. Sorry, I would like to be here forever as well, but you know how that is. Also comes from Nita Sweeney. She asks, what was the most difficult challenge you faced in writing Rose, and how did you overcome it? As I said earlier in the video, I had to rewrite like 2/3 of the book, and that was a challenge. I think I just applied as much creative juice as possible and just muscled through it, tried to think of what's something I could do to really set the novel in a different direction. And at some point I thought to myself, the original concept has the entire book taking place in Paris's apartment. Why not move it out of the apartment? Why not change the setting? And that's what I did, and I just kind of figured out how that could happen and where it would lead. And lo and behold, a whole new version of the story was written, and it turned out to be the better version. And I somehow muscled through it and just wrote it out. And like I said, I hope I don't ever have to do that again. But yeah, in the end, I'm glad I went through that experience. As I keep saying, it led to this momentous occasion. So I hope that answers your question, Nita. That's it for the Q&A, or AMA, or AMAA, whatever we're calling it. That's it for the Q&A, and I want to thank everyone who submitted questions. You guys are awesome. I loved reading your questions and thinking of responses. I really hope we get to do this again someday. Hey, maybe for another book. Before it's published. Who knows? Anything's possible. Anyway, you can still get Rose in ebook version for only 99 cents, or if you're British, 99 pence, through Tuesday the 23rd. So get on that as soon as possible. Well, and if you do end up reading Rose, please tell me what you think. Leave a review on whatever website you bought it from. The more reviews I get, the more it helps me out, and the more it helps other people decide if they want to read Rose. And also, I just love getting reader feedback. I love hearing what you guys think, what you enjoyed about the story. Yeah. And that's all for now. I hope to have more videos up soon. As I said, I will be visiting my friend Jolene in Villisca, Iowa very soon, and we're gonna film some videos together, I'm sure. So until the next time, my followers of fear, stay safe out there, and pleasant nightmares!